like people in the neighborhood would even care about Boyz N the Hood. I knew everybody on my street would love it. Hollywood, not so sure.
Whenever something hits close to home, it's gonna evoke some type of emotion.
The South that we went to was real South, not, this is like Central Florida, so we're talking about people who are not even used to movie crews at all, and we shot in a swamp.
When Boyz N the Hood first dropped, it hit different, but one uncensored scene ended up getting it pulled off air for good. John Singleton wasn't holding back with that movie, but that burger joint scene took things way too far.
Don't follow me, man! Go your own way!
And before anyone could blink, the tension from the movie had spilled out into real life.
Then when I woke up the next morning, I looked at CNN, they made this big map, and anywhere and everywhere that there was something that happened in and around a theater that was playing Boyz N the Hood, they spotted.
It even got so wild that Ice Cube got caught up in the chaos. Let's dive right in. So, John Singleton wanted to tell the truth about living in the hood with Boyz N the Hood, but Columbia Pictures just wanted a hit. That was it. The gang leaders, though, they wanted to stay alive. The burger stand scene was set just blocks away from where real shootings had gone down. 3 Bloods in red get taken out while eating out, and suddenly it's all quiet. Then boom. Chaos, bullets flying, bodies dropping. For Hollywood execs sitting safe in their offices, it was just another powerful scene. But for the people living in that neighborhood, it felt way too real. It was almost like a challenge.
It's where this movie was a reality. They couldn't connect with the emotion on screen because it was their reality.
Right before shooting that scene, a Bloods leader named Clay Shaheed Sloan, aka Bone, pulled the producer aside at a local cafe. He told him straight up, "I know you're about to shoot that scene where Ice Cube kills 3 Bloods. That's across from the jungle. Some 14-year-old kid trying to earn stripes might try to pop Ice Cube for real."
He got a call from this guy named Bone who said, "We need to meet." He said, "Look, I'm a businessman. I don't care about your movie, but you're shooting, 200 yards from the jungle. It will take nothing for some 14-year-old kid to earn his stripes to go, drive his car by and try to pop Ice Cube."
At that point, this wasn't just acting anymore. They were standing on real turf, surrounded by real tension. And Singleton, only 23 at the time, had to make a choice. Play it safe so the studio wouldn't freak out, or film it the way he saw it, raw and dangerous. He chose the truth, but he had to make some peace first. They hired real gang members as extras, not for realism, but to keep things cool. If they were part of the scene, they wouldn't be against it. Then came the heavy security. Armed guards on rooftops and messages spread through the hood that the movie was neutral. Still, the air was thick with tension. Singleton later said everyone on set was nervous, from the actors to the crew, literally everyone. It felt like anything could pop off at any moment. Back at Columbia Pictures, the suits were losing it. Rumors flew that someone might get hurt. Singleton was told to cut the scene. They even advised him to stop production, but he just wouldn't back down. He kept it in. No changes, no edits. Just that burger stand. 3 lives gone, and a neighborhood's pain caught on film. It was raw, too raw, and that's what got people heated. Days after Boyz N the Hood dropped, things turned violent for real. In a Southside Chicago theater, a man was shot dead before the movie even hit the halfway mark. In Minneapolis, it happened again, but this time outside the theater. A fight broke out after a late showing. Someone ran to their trunk, and before long, 2 people were lying on the ground, bleeding with ticket stubs still in their pockets. Across the country, it started happening everywhere, from Philly to Atlanta to LA. It was like some kind of pattern nobody could stop. Dozens of people ended up hurt, some bad. Not really because of the movie itself, but because of the energy it carried. It felt too close to home, too real. Every screening came with that heavy, tense feeling like something might happen.
Let's go. We walked out of the theater, we got to the car, we get in the car, we're going down the hill, And as we're going down the hill, we see all these police cars going up the hill. That's when it happened.
Theaters reacted fast. Some just stopped showing Boyz N the Hood altogether. Others brought in a form of security, like metal detectors, bag checks, cops standing outside under the bright lights of the marquee. People started asking themselves, are we watching a movie or walking into a setup? And when the media started pointing fingers, the blame came easy. Blame the movie, blame John Singleton, blame the truth for being too raw, too loud, too honest. Some said the film was dangerous, others said it was genius. But either way, everyone agreed on one thing. Boyz N the Hood hit something deep in America's stomach that the country wasn't ready to face in public. At a press conference in Culver City, Singleton spoke from the heart. He said, "My heart goes out to the families of the people that were hurt. I'm very disappointed because that's not what my film is about. It's about family, love, and friendship." He made it clear that his film didn't cause the violence. The problems were already there long before he turned a camera on.
My film is not a violent film. My film has a couple of violent acts in it. My film is a real film in that fact that the violence that does happen in it seems real because there is so much character development involved.
Singleton also called out the press for twisting things. He said, reporters always blow up stories about violence when it's a movie by a black director, but stay quiet when it happens around other films. There are plenty of movies where things happen and no one reports it, he said. But when my film comes out, it's everywhere. That's artistic racism. He said the truth was, people weren't reacting to fiction. Rather, they were reacting to something they already knew too well. What they saw on screen was what they'd already lived. The shootings at theaters weren't because of the movie. They were proof of what the movie had been saying all along. Meanwhile, legendary critic Roger Ebert saw things differently. He praised the movie for being real, emotional, and powerful, but he came down hard on Columbia Pictures. He said the studio messed up the marketing, turning a serious story into a spectacle. They shouted fire in a crowded theater, Ebert wrote, not because it was burning, but because they thought it would sell tickets. He said the trailers hyped up the violence, the guns, the cars, the attitude, instead of showing what the film was really about, Trey, Doughboy, and their struggle to survive. By doing that, he said, the studio invited the exact kind of chaos that later broke out in theaters. And the crazy part? The movie wasn't even about glorifying violence. It was about loss, about pain. Every scene Singleton wrote was meant to show what was taken, not what was gained. Ricky wasn't just a character. He was every young black man who tried to escape the cycle but didn't make it. Doughboy's last words weren't a flex, they were a funeral speech.
Shit just goes on and on, you know.
But once the movie dropped, that message got lost. Critics argued if Boyz N the Hood caused violence or exposed it. Parents debated whether their kids should even watch it. Politicians used it as ammo for their TV debates. But for the people who lived that reality, the answer was clear. The film wasn't the fire. It was the smoke. And the country had been burning long before the lights went out in that theater. And even behind the scenes, the danger wasn't gone. While filming, Ice Cube himself almost got caught in a real-life situation. While they were filming in the jungle, word got around that Ice Cube was on set, and that alone set things off. By then, Cube wasn't just that dude from NWA anymore. He was a full-on icon. West Coast rap, rebellion, and power all rolled into one. And in a place like the jungle, being that famous was risky. Not because people hated him, but because in those streets, taking down someone with a name could earn you respect. Hurting or robbing Cube would have been a street trophy for some young guys looking to prove something.
Gangsters at the time wanted to be paid. You know, it's like you shoot a movie in our hood, give us some money.
One day, it almost went bad. A local kid started beefing with one of Cube's crew members. It began with words, but the energy shifted fast. People started circling, voices got louder, and hands drifted toward waistbands. It was about to turn ugly. This was not a movie scene anymore, but real life. Then, just before it blew up, a few gang leaders from the area stepped in. They knew what was at stake. This film was their story, their reality being told on screen, and they didn't want it wrecked by some street drama. They pulled the young ones aside and told them to chill. They made it clear that Ice Cube was off limits. That call probably saved a life that day.
There was a night when we were on Crenshaw. We were doing this big wide scene with a whole bunch of people. Cube had some of the members of the then lynch mob hanging out and everything. And one dude came up on the set, you know, talking about this stuff, whoop-de, 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 whoop. They just rat-packed him, mobbed him up, you know, pushed him out. He was like, I'm coming back, I'm shooting up the whole set. Fuck all y'all, I'm killing all y'all, right?
Even after that close call, Cube didn't back out. He kept showing up, kept filming, even though he knew people were watching him. Not just as an actor, but as a symbol. He didn't act scared or let the pressure get to him, and that's probably why his performance hit so hard. He wasn't pretending to be Doughboy. He understood Doughboy. He'd lived through the same kind of world, carried the same weight, and felt every word he said. When Cube talked about life on the streets in Boyz N the Hood, he wasn't just reading lines, he was speaking truth. That's what made it real. The movie wasn't shot on a Hollywood backlot. It was filmed in actual neighborhoods, with real people and real danger. The extras weren't brought in from some fancy agency. They were locals, folks who knew that life firsthand. That's why the film had that raw, unfiltered energy that still hits hard today. Later, Cube admitted that some moments got tense on set, but he never let fear win. For him, it wasn't just about acting. It was about doing justice to the story, even if it meant risking his safety. But not everyone involved had that same kind of strength or protection. Some of the younger actors faced their own struggles after the movie. Take Jermaine Hopkins, who played Dookie, the guy always hanging around with a pacifier in his mouth.
I beat your ass 3 times already. That's just 1 time, nigga, let's play again.
After Boyz N the Hood, he did pretty well for a bit, even landing a role in Juice with Tupac. But life behind the scenes wasn't easy. Years later, in 2011, he got arrested for trying to buy 200 pounds of weed from an undercover cop. He only did 30 days in jail, but the damage was done.
So then in 2011, you get busted for attempting to purchase 200 pounds of marijuana in, I guess, Arizona?
Yeah.
It showed how tough it was for some of these young actors to stay steady after the fame. And Jermaine wasn't the only one. A few others from the cast also ran into problems: addiction, legal issues, or just falling off completely. Most of them came from the same tough neighborhoods their characters did. Boyz N the Hood wasn't just acting for them, it was their reality. And when the cameras stopped rolling, they went back to those same struggles, now with a bit of fame but not much support. That's the bittersweet truth behind the movie's power. It felt real because, for a lot of them, it was real. Some had already lost friends to violence. Some grew up in rough homes. And when Hollywood packed up, it didn't exactly come back to help. The film got all the praise it deserved, sure, but the real lives behind it didn't always share that same success. Which brings us to another character who quite made a difference after the movie. One of the most powerful and real parts of Boyz N the Hood is how it shows what really happens when people get hit by gun violence. That truth hits hardest through the character Chris, played by Regi Green. In the movie, Chris is one of Doughboy's boys who's in a wheelchair after getting shot.
Wait a minute. Wait a minute. Hey, man, it's family business. Wait a minute. Hey, yo.
But what most people didn't know was that Regi Green wasn't acting. He was actually paralyzed in real life. That choice made the film feel different, raw, real, and way more honest than anything Hollywood usually does. Regi's story itself was heartbreaking and connected deeply with what the movie was trying to say. When he was just 6 years old, growing up in Richmond, California, he got caught in the middle of a shootout between 2 neighbors. One of them grabbed him and used him as a human shield, and a stray bullet hit him, paralyzing him from the waist down and changing his life forever.
in Iran. At the age of 6, and this is real, one man used me as a body shield, while another man shot and nearly killed her. Can y'all see why my chair is supported by wheels? At first, I responded like everyone else.
Casting Regi wasn't just about acting. It was about showing the real side of life in places like South Central. And he wasn't new to the game either. He had been acting since he was 13, appearing in shows like Different Strokes, Highway to Heaven, and After MASH, before landing his role in Boyz N the Hood. So he brought both skill and experience, not just as an actor, but as someone who had actually lived the pain behind the story. But what makes his story even more tragic is what happened right after his injury. Just 2 days after he was shot, Regi's father died from suicide. So at 6 years old, he had to deal with losing his ability to walk and losing his dad, all in the same day.
And I was used as a shield, so that's how I ended up getting shot. February the 12th.
Wow.
And then February the 14th, 2 days later, my father committed suicide.
Still, he didn't let that break him. Instead, he used those experiences to fuel his career and later became a motivational speaker, sharing his story to help young people push through their toughest moments. Now, long before all the Oscar talk and the movie's fame, Boyz N the Hood almost didn't even get made. And the biggest problem wasn't the violence or the message, it was John Singleton himself. He was just 23 years old, no big movies under his belt, no Hollywood connections, just a student from UCLA with a script that felt more like a mission than a movie. When Singleton walked into Columbia Pictures to pitch it, he didn't play by the usual Hollywood rules. Back then, studios liked to buy scripts from new writers and hand them off to big, experienced directors, people they trusted to handle the money and the production. So when they read Boyz N the Hood, they loved it. But they wanted someone else to direct it and offered him some money. Most young writers would have said yes, just to get in the door. But Singleton wasn't one of them.
And I said, well, what if we want to just give you some money and we'll have somebody else do this film? I said, well, then we have to end this meeting.
He looked the studio execs in the eye and said, if I can't direct it, you're not getting it. That wasn't arrogance, it was purpose. He knew this story had to come from someone who had lived it, someone who understood what it meant to grow up in South Central. The pain, the love, the loss, and the everyday fight to survive.
And they asked me a question. They said, so we hear you want to direct this movie. And I said, I'm going to direct this film. And they said, well, why do you think you can direct this film? And I said, because I was born to direct it.
Hollywood didn't get it. To them, it was just another urban drama. But to Singleton, it was his life. He'd grown up in the same kind of neighborhood, seen friends die young, and watched kids get lost in the system before they ever had a chance. He wasn't imagining those scenes. He was remembering them. And he knew no outsider could tell that story right. At first, the studio tried to push back. They said he was too young, too unproven. But Singleton stood firm. He wasn't begging. He was offering them something new, something real. And in the end, Columbia took the risk. That decision changed movie history. Singleton didn't just direct Boyz N the Hood. He breathed it. Every shot, every word, every emotion came straight from his vision. The way the camera captured childhood innocence in a broken world, the unpolished dialogue, the slow pace that made you feel like you were right there on the block. It was all him. The film wasn't flashy. It didn't try to glamorize anything. It just told the truth, and people felt it. When it dropped, it didn't just make waves. It hit like an earthquake. For the first time, people who'd never seen their lives on screen saw themselves, and for everyone else, it forced them to face a reality they'd ignored. Then came the history-making moment. John Singleton became the youngest person ever nominated for Best Director at the Oscars, and the first black filmmaker to ever receive that nomination. It wasn't just about the award, it was about being seen, about opening the door for every young black storyteller who came after him.
I was the youngest person ever and the first African-American to be nominated for Best Director, and I beat Orson Welles out by a year.
And to think, it all started with one 23-year-old kid who refused to let Hollywood take his story away. That one act of defiance turned a movie into a movement. John Singleton wasn't just the director of Boyz N the Hood, he was the Hood, and he made sure the whole world finally saw it for what it really was. When Boyz N the Hood dropped in 1991, it hit different. It wasn't just another movie about the streets, it was a message. Even after 30 years, it's still one of the realest and most powerful stories about growing up black in America. But what most people don't know is that the film almost never made it out. From day one, it faced all kinds of pushback. During its release, some theaters actually had gun violence break out while showing it. That set off a whole media panic. Headlines calling it dangerous, like the movie itself was the problem. Even though the violence had nothing to do with Boyz N the Hood, they still tried to paint it as a black issue. Some cities banned it completely. Studios got nervous, and censors started circling. Then came one scene, a moment so real and so raw that it nearly got the whole film shut down. But instead of backing off, John Singleton stood firm. He knew this story had to be told, and he was right. Because this movie wasn't just about pain and struggle, it was about life. About how, in those same neighborhoods, everyone calls dangerous, there's love, family, laughter, and hope.